We are admittedly in a bit of a weird situation when it comes to the current build-up to Survivor Series War Games 2024. You see, normally the Monday before a major WWE premium show, which just happens to be the same day that I'm uploading this video, I would normally upload my predictions video, the video where I tell you who I think is going to win and lose every single announced match at the upcoming premium show. However, when you look at the currently announced match card for Survivor Series War Games 2024, there are only 3 matches currently announced for the card. Now, I'm sure that they still plan on adding one, hopefully at least 2 more matches to this show. However, there's not a lot of time to be able to do so because there's only 1 week left. That gives us 1 episode of Raw and 1 already pre-recorded episode of Friday Night SmackDown in order to add more matches. Now, I know that Triple H likes his shorter WWE premium shows, but this is short by every standard, especially by previous Survivor Series War Games, where last year's there were 5 matches and the year before that there were 6. So it seems that just like my bag of Doritos that seem to be getting less and less chips every single year because of shrinkflation, we might be having that same effect in the world of the WWE. So in today's video, I want to talk about a couple of the reasons why this might be happening, but I'm also going to share a couple of matches that I think they could still add to this show. Even with just 1 week left, I feel like they can get away with adding a couple of more of these matches that I'm going to talk about. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, ring the bell for notifications. If you're a wrestling fan, I'm confident that you're going to fall in love with his YouTube channel because we always upload daily wrestling content. And don't forget, if you want even more daily wrestling content, check out the Patreon, patreon.com/SantiZap. Over there, we upload so many more videos that never get uploaded to YouTube. I'm talking like 12 to 14 extra videos a week. So if you're interested in that, check the link in the description, check the link in the pinned comment. I'm confident that you'll like it even if you give it just 1 month. All right, let's jump into the topic of this video. Let's quickly talk about 3 reasons as to why I think the WWE might be in this position, which is the position of having to quickly rush and add matches to an upcoming premium show the week of that premium show. Because this isn't normal. Typically, the WWE would have all of their matches for their upcoming premium show announced well in advance, at least typically a week and a half in advance. Now, I don't think that any one of these 3 reasons is incredibly more impactful than any of the other ones. I just think that it's a culmination of these 3 reasons that's put the WWE in this position to have to rush the week of the show. The first one being the fact that we're down from a 3-hour Monday Night Raw down to a 2-hour Monday Night Raw, which is just giving us less TV time on the main roster to develop storylines faster to have them ready to be announced for a premium show. Because at first glance, it might not necessarily seem like the biggest deal to lose just 1 hour of programming, but in an entire WWE premium live show cycle, that is a handful of hours that is now taken away from us, that's taken away from WWE talent in order to be able to build their feuds to be announced into matches. So it's a pretty simple equation. Less time on TV to build matches means that you have to use every single show you have in order to build that match, including the shows of the week of. And losing that hour on Monday Night Raw is actually impacting SmackDown as well, because what would normally be developed in that 3rd hour of Monday Night Raw is now spilling over to Friday Night SmackDown. I think a great example of that is what's going on with the Women's War Games match, which a lot of the things that you would have typically seen on Monday Night Raw are now happening on SmackDown as well in order to build up extra hype for the match. And then you have the Bloodline stuff, which is stealing even more screen time because that's also happening on Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown, which is giving less time to those other smaller feuds to develop into PLE matches. The second reason comes in the actual buildup of the show, more specifically the Women's War Games match, which is giving very little room to develop matches within the women's division to help fill out this show. Think about this. This match, this Women's War Games match, has 3 sets of champions in here. It's got the Women's World Champion, the WWE Women's World Champion, and the Women's Tag Team Champions. Those are 3 individual prizes that you could have done different individual matches for. So when you put them all together into one match, all of a sudden you've kind of strangled the women's division into only being showcased into this one particular Survivor Series War Games match. And when you look at previous Survivor Series War Games, for example, last year, there was an additional women's match aside from the Women's War Games, like last year's Rhea Ripley versus Zoe Stark. But that just can't happen this year because all of the viable women that you could have in a PLE match are in this one PLE match. So you're kind of stuck with only having one women's match this year. Because if I'm being honest with you, when I look at the rest of the women's division outside of that women's War Games match, there's nothing warranting a PLE match. The only thing I could think of would be the final of the Women's United States Championship tournament, but that's already been announced to Saturday night's main event. Which brings us to reason number 3. Saturday night's main event. Listen, Saturday night's main event is basically like 2 weeks right after Survivor Series War Games, and it's a show that is going to be significantly bigger than War Games in terms of overall scale. Survivor Series War Games is relegated to your typical premium channels like Peacock, WWE Network if you're all over the world, Sportsnet if you're in Canada. But Saturday night's main event is enormous. I need you guys to understand the scale of what this show is going to be, because it's not going to be relegated to the traditional channels that you think of. This is going to be on NBC primetime TV. This is going to make WWE available to tens of millions of eyeballs. That is significantly more than Survivor Series could potentially bring in. So if I'm WWE, especially if I'm building up to my big debut at Netflix, I'm going to save my biggest guns to put them in front of the most amount of people, which is going to be on NBC in primetime. So for Saturday night's main event, a lot of the matches that I think would have made a lot of sense for Survivor Series War Games, like Cody Rhodes versus Kevin Owens, they're likely going to happen on that show. Same with special surprises, special returns. I wouldn't be surprised if John Cena and The Rock are at Saturday night's main event. So basically, Saturday night's main event is kind of forcing the WWE to shift their attention to a show that is a couple of weeks away, which I think in turn is damaging what they should put on at Survivor Series War Games. I think when you put all of those reasons together, that's why we're in this situation where we're scrambling last minute to fill out the show, because there's no way that they're only going to have 3 matches. That would be crazy. So there's only 3 matches. So let's talk about the matches that they could still potentially add. Now, I'm going to give you matches that all logically make sense, but to some degree would feel rushed if you were to all of a sudden announce them on the Monday Night Raw Go Home or the pre-taped Friday Night SmackDown Go Home the day before the actual show. There's no 2 ways around it. Like, it's going to feel rushed regardless of what it is that you announce here. I hope they still announce something. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to just say, don't announce it because it's rushed. No, please give us more matches. I don't care that it's rushed at this point. Let's start off with the first match. Now, out of all of the matches that I'm going to talk about, this is the one that would feel the least rushed because, frankly, this one is ready. This is ready for Survivor Series War Games. Hell, you could have made the argument that it was ready for Crown Jewel if they hadn't decided to do the silly Crown Jewel Championship match. I'm talking about Kevin Owens versus Cody Rhodes for the WWE Undisputed Championship. This feud is ready to go. This doesn't need anything else. I'm already super hyped for it. You're already super hyped for it. I would say that to a degree, it's probably the most exciting feud that's happening in the WWE today. But something tells me that they're saving it for, you guessed it, Saturday night's main event. And they already kind of alluded to it because Kevin Owens said, I'll fight you anywhere, whether it's Survivor Series or whether it's Saturday night's main event. And the fact that this giant of a match with your biggest babyface and right now your hottest heel in Kevin Owens, the fact that this hasn't been announced yet tells me that they're likely saving this for Saturday night's main event. And I get it. You probably want a huge marquee match for Saturday night's main event, considering you're going to be in front of the most amount of people that you've been in a really, really long time. But when I think of like War Games, when I think of Survivor Series, a feud like what we've had, which has felt so real and so personal between Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes, this feels like the perfect place for it. It feels like it should be at a big 4 WWE premium show. So yeah, if you don't want to put in a lot of brain power, this is the match that you should announce. But again, I really believe that this is not happening at War Games. I'm pretty confident that they're shifting this to Saturday night's main event. I don't know. I just When I think of Saturday night's main event, I think like happy, exciting. But when I think of this feud, I feel anger, hatred, and a grudge. It just fits better at Survivor Series. The next match that I also think they've done a pretty good job of building up on Monday Night Raw, that is the story between the Final Testament, the Final Miztament versus the Wyatt Six. Now, if I'm booking this, I probably wouldn't do another faction versus faction because you already have so many like multi-people matches announced for this show with both War Games matches. I would probably just do The Miz versus Bo Dallas / Uncle Howdy on this show. This allows them to continue to build up to an eventual faction versus faction match, maybe at Saturday night's main event, the Royal Rumble, Raw, Netflix, whatever it is that you might want to do, while still giving us a match that totally warrants a premium live event spot based on the story that they've told. Not only do I think it's a good enough story to be at a premium show, I feel like they've already built it up to that point where they could announce it and it could make sense. Frankly, if they announced it last week, I feel like all of us would have probably nodded in agreement that, yeah, cool, this is a great match to add. Plus, it adds a lot of excitement because it gives a veteran like The Miz another one of these premium shows that are becoming harder for him to get, but it would also be Bo Dallas and the Wyatt Six premium live event debut. It's kind of wild that since the Wyatt Six has debuted, we've not yet had him at a premium show. I don't understand why entirely, but this is one of these situations where you can absolutely pull the trigger and it would make sense. So yeah, with that entire storyline, I know there's so many people involved carrying across the rest of the Wyatt Six, the rest of the Final Testament. I would just do, in terms of the first match of this feud, The Miz versus Bo Dallas. I think it would be great. Another match that you could do here, just for the sake of moving on and getting on with it, is the Judgment Day's World Tag Team Championship match against the War Raiders. Has this had a good enough buildup to be at a premium live event show? Hell no, it hasn't. I mean, Judgment Day just has been terrible tag team champions in the first place. They barely wear the belts. They barely act like a tag team. You barely see the belts in general. They're just in the background of the Judgment Day Clubhouse. We've seen the PlayStation 5 more than the title belts at this point in the Judgment Day Clubhouse. I feel like the PlayStation 5 is more prestigious than the World Tag Team titles at the moment. But we've also seen the WWE just sort of add women's tag team championship matches to PLEs with very little buildup, and it's worked. So you could totally do it with these sets of titles because you've got big names and a big faction that would be involved in this in the Judgment Day, that I think you could get away with it even with very little to no buildup that they've had between the actual Judgment Day and the War Raiders. Look, last year, you gave us Dragon Lee versus Santos Escobar, a match that literally had to be announced out of nowhere when Carlito couldn't participate, so you could totally do it. Doesn't need a heck of a lot of build. The title's enough, and just the fact that people want to see Judgment Day lose these titles is enough of a reason to warrant putting this on the show to pad out the number of matches. It's not ideal, but at least it's something. Now, I know that there aren't very many matches currently booked for this show, but you can bet on the winner of every single match if you wanted to that's currently announced over on MyBookie, which I still think it's kind of wild that you can bet on WWE. I think the crazier part is that somehow the team that's got both women's champions are underdogs. Why? Why are they underdogs? Now, if you did want to play along and bet on Survivor Series matches, make sure that you use the link that's directly available in the pinned comment. That's directly my link, or you can just go to MyBookie and use promo code Santi because they're going to double your initial deposit. So if you deposit 50 for this, you're going to get an extra 50 to be able to play with. And I'm going to be putting it on the heels women's side to win Survivor Series War Games because there's just no way that the two champions are going to lose. Again, promo code Santi, MyBookie. Let's get back into the video. Another match that I think you could totally get away with here is Ludwig Kaiser versus Braun Breaker versus Sheamus for the Intercontinental Championship. The only reason I don't want this is because I actually would love for this to develop and materialize into a solid narrative and a feud, and making this match just happen at Survivor Series, I think would actually be stealing the ability for these guys to tell a really nice narrative. I feel like they deserve the time to be able to build that narrative, and putting it at Survivor Series doesn't give them the ability to be able to do so. But would it be an awesome match? goddamn right, dude. Like, the three men involved in there could genuinely just steal the show and put on a match of the night. On top of that, we haven't seen the Intercontinental Championship at a premium show on a couple of PLEs at this point. Last PLE cycle, we had the United States Championship triple threat match. So why not at this show have the Raw version, the Intercontinental Championship triple threat match? You could get away with this match purely on the fact that it's got a title, it's got names that people care about, and the fact that it would be a fantastic in-ring affair. I just personally believe that you could let these guys cook with a narrative to make the match feel a lot more impactful and meaningful. Maybe at Saturday night's main event or Raw Netflix or the Royal Rumble, whatever it might be. And the last one that you can do is LA Knight versus Shinsuke Nakamura, but this would be really, really rushed. I mean, we just had the return of Shinsuke Nakamura. We barely know anything about this new iteration, this new gimmick that he's introduced to the WWE. So this would feel entirely too quickly. So I don't actually love this option, but it's an option nonetheless in a world where we just want more out of WWE matches. Again, 3 is not enough, and if you want to at least give us 4 and you decide to go with Shinsuke Nakamura versus LA Knight, I'm at the point where beggars can't be choosers. I'll just take that. But similarly to what we just said with the triple threat match for the Intercontinental Championship, this would be doing a disservice to both Nakamura and LA Knight because they've yet to even cut a promo on each other. We had Nakamura do the pre-tape promo, but we haven't had LA Knight even so much as respond yet. And I just don't think that LA Knight's response happening the day before Survivor Series in a pre-tape show warrants enough to just put this on the PLE. It would just be way too rushed and it just wouldn't be fair to the two guys. It doesn't give them the opportunity to tell a nice story. And those are really the matches that on paper make some sense here. As you can see, there's no women's matches because, as I already stated in this video, the women's booking is part of the problem because there's no women left outside of this Survivor Series War Games match to book into a Survivor Series, like, just regular match. It is what it is, man. I'm sure they'll figure it out, but it's weird that we only have 3 matches up to this point. So expect my predictions video probably Wednesday. I would assume that we'll know all of the matches at least by then. We'll see, but that's it. I'm done. Get out of here.